good morrow, and good morning. Now, despite a numerous amounts of technical difficulties, we're back. Holy hell! Third time's the charm. Good God, you couldn't tell you as it goes.
Let's try this from the top.
From the top. There we go. Good evening, good morrow, and good morning. All of my magnificently sexy brethren out there, I hope you're doing fantastically well. Welcome to the Den of Iniquity, the Studio Fantastico, and in which we've got one of our favorite brethren, all the way from the other side of the world, Widows Tama. Welcome, Brother Bailey. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you, brother. Again, thank you for having me on your magnificent podcast. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, Lord knows I take some personal enjoyment out of listening to you. So it is a deep pleasure to have you back on. And likewise, we value your opinion. You know, we value the conversation, the dialogue you bring into it. And today we've got an enticing one, a sexy one of which I feel like has a lot of relevance in today, where we have a lot of distraction going on. And that has to do with initiation. So within the craft, we know that there's, it's deeply initiatic. But before you came into the craft, how would you personally define your experience with this concept of being initiated or starting something new?
In terms of initiation, before joining the craft, of course, I hadn't experienced anything like the sorts. I mean, you have your very casual initiations. I mean, I should reword that. I've never had or been a part of initiation so structured, so organized, so symbolic, anything that would even, struggle to compare, I guess would be a sports team. But that initiation was quite casual, not so much structure. It was a bit of shits and gigs, as you may say. So I guess my viewpoint on being initiated was a little bit skewed, as I didn't actually know that such things existed, at least, with regards to the initiation regarding Freemasonry. I couldn't have even possibly comprehended something like that happening, because I've never been a part of something like that. It wasn't something that I was so closed-minded to. I was actually quite excited and in like equal parts, like a little bit nervous. In fact, no, fuck that. I was bloody shitting my pants. I was nervous as hell, to walk into this lodge room, to see all these men in suits and regalia, looking all business, like real official, something completely mind-blowing, something completely alien to me. And again, my definition of initiation before joining the craft was something so much different, and something so completely alien to me.
Do you think that when you look at where you were before you started this journey and to where you are now, what do you think it was about that initiation, that experience? Because we've all gone through things, initiations into manhood, sometimes which are more socially bound, right? You get married, you get with a woman, there are these different events which happen in your life, your first job, your first car, your first fight, there are these things
Yep.
which happen to you.
Yep.
Of all of them, what was it about the initiation within Freemasonry that really brought you to where you are now? And do you think you'd be here had you not be here in your world without having gone through that level of an initiation?
Oh, definitely not. I mean, like I said, that was something completely alien to me. I'd never been part of something so structured, so well thought of, so pre-planned, and even having those like nuances of symbology and allegory attached to that initiation. I've never ever experienced anything like the sort. And I think in my own personal experience, having gone through that, it opened my eyes. It was something completely, I keep using the word different, but I can't think of anything else. It was something completely different from what I had constructed in my mind. I was under the impression that I was going to get paddled. So I low-key clenched when I was walking around the body of the lodge. And obviously when I was brought into the light, having my brothers surround me, I could feel that I don't know, I could just feel that love from every single one of my brothers that was in that lodge room. It was something completely opposite to what I had constructed mentally. And to be, once I had that veil lifted and I was, as they say, brought into the light. Yeah, I can only imagine that would be how someone would feel as if they had some sort of divine intervention, some sort of divine providence. That's the only way that there's not something I've ever experienced, but just that
Well, that's
overwhelming
actually,
feeling.
it's a really interesting comparison, and I think that that kind of serves as a positive segue into kind of what I want to look at when it comes to this purpose of initiation. Because with the craft, it is a system of allegory meant to deliver you into an understanding of morality and give you a system that you can use to navigate that moral improvement of self. And a lot of
Yep.
people experience this and through something which you described, which is like divine providence. You have something which happens to you in your life where it puts you in immediate contact with the grander magnitudes of our experience
Yep.
in this world. And so before the craft, what were some experiences, what were some things that happened that may have happened or in your life that you observed that really brought you into these points of introspection in the same way that we see within the craft of Freemasonry gets really heavily pushed on?
Ooh, nothing. There is nothing that I can compare it to, at least within my own personal life. If I could say, like, I had quite a, I don't know, I guess a systematic, mechanical way of living before the craft, in a sense that I was kind of restricted by my own preconceptions, my own prejudices and biases and all that sort of stuff. And if I had to make some sort of comparison from my life experiences and sort of try and sort of compare them to that initiation, I wouldn't be able to give you one because it's not something that I have ever experienced in my entire life. Like I said, everything that has come close has always been a social initiation with no sort of structure. It was very, very casual, very social, very off the cuff. Those sorts of initiations I have been a part of, with regards to sports teams and just things within friends and whatnot. So I would fail to be able to compare any of my life experiences to that process of initiation, and even the feeling that I got from that. There have been moments in my life where I have had something similar, but I was in a different mind frame back then. You know, maybe no less than 5 years before I joined the craft, I was atheist, man. I was strictly no higher. I didn't have a belief in anything. I was at a spiritual contention, spiritual conflict. I was spiritually conflicted. Reasons for that being that I grew up in a very diverse neighborhood, culturally diverse neighborhood, and I had the pleasure of absolutely being a part of, this massive neighborhood family, getting to experience different crockpots of life and ideas and religious and spiritual differences. And as I had never ever been forced or made to worship something, how some families are just of one religion. I had never had that in my life. I had such spiritual freedom to find out for myself, and it's something that I've been truly grateful. It's one of those thoughts that, as I'm sitting on the couch and I'm kind of reflecting on my life moments and thinking, shit, I was so lucky that I was granted the freedom I had with regards to finding out something that would resonate with me. Different tools for different people. I'm sure you've heard that before. And as I said, going back to where I was going before, like with regards to my spiritual conflict, because of me experiencing all these different walks of life, seeing the good that was done by regular average Joes, regular men and women, boys and girls, in the name of their faith, in the name of their spirituality. I just couldn't bring myself to align with one if it meant that I had to disregard the rest. And that is the primary reason that I had that conflict. because I just couldn't bring it upon myself to go down a road which would mean that I would have to disregard everyone else's beliefs, everyone else's experiences, and sort of say that someone was wrong in what they were doing in terms of worship and belief. So yeah, backtracking to your original question, coming off this tangent, I would not be able to give you a life experience that came anywhere near my Masonic initiation. For the better, like for the better.
Well, I think that's a testament to the experience behind I would say what is the moral science of our ritual within the craft. Within the craft, for those who are uninitiated, there are 3 primary degrees of the Blue Lodge. They are the Entered Apprentice, the Fellow Craft, and the Master Mason. Now, brother, as you took these 3 different degrees, you passed in sorts, you were initiated 3 times in each one of these places, in each one of these ways. They're different stages of life, as it is often indicated in our ritual and our rite. How would you personally say, do you think it was the whole experience of these degrees that brought you to where you are? Do you think, was there one particular degree that kind of, you felt like prepared you the most? Or, there's definitely a moment, right, where you go from one world to the other, one space to another. For you, where did that really occur within your Masonic career?
Oh, wholeheartedly within my Entered Apprentice degree.
Okay.
Because by the time I got to my Fellow Craft and my Master Mason, I had already had an expectation. I'd already had that experience. So I had something to more or less go off of. Whereas in my Entered Apprentice degree, I had nothing to go off of. I essentially went in blind, both, metaphorically and, otherwise. So yeah, I think the defining point in me kind of pinpointing through those 3 degrees where my life kind of switched would definitely be my Entered Apprentice degree. And to this day, it is my favorite degree because of that experience that I had, because of that kind of shift in, I guess you could say, consciousness, because
I was waiting for the
moment,
C word. It's one of my favorites.
yeah,
So what do you think brought that about,
consciousness.
right? Because that's a big change. That's the thing in many spaces, those conversations, it ain't just those daddy issues. These are bigger questions. These are bigger problems of sorts when you consider the question of where must you be and where are you going to be going through and experiencing this initiation. So with your mindset, where were you and where did you end up going through that first degree?
Well, where I was an absolute state of confusion. In all honesty, like I didn't know what I was. Well, no, that's a lie. I knew what I was getting myself into with regards to Freemasonry because I had 2 very trustworthy sources, my good friend and my father-in-law. So I trusted them, from what they were telling me, obviously without breaking their obligation. But yeah, I mean, I guess the mind frame in which I was in was, again, a state of, we'll say, confusion, because there were things I was unaware of. I was essentially putting my faith, which is a funny word considering that I'm not a man of faith, but you know where I'm going with this. I put my faith in the men that I trusted most, which was my father-in-law and my really good friend. And that faith was well placed. And I knew that going in from the start. I knew that I was not going to be part of something that I never believed in, because they both knew what my beliefs were. They both knew the kind of man that I was. But that still didn't stop me from being in that moment of confusion, of unknowing, of darkness, you could say. And like I said, the moment that veil was lifted, and it was, again, I've had I could count with one hand how many times I had a feeling like that. So it was unexpected. It really was to see all my brothers, brothers of different religion, different spirituality, different walks of life, standing around me, as a family, my Masonic family. I was now initiated into something greater than myself, something selfless. And I knew that, and I felt that, and I could genuinely just, I don't know how to explain it. I genuinely do not know how to explain it, because like I said, I can only ever count that feeling with one hand, that I've experienced that in my entire life, in all 35 years of my life. And it was
That's
something that I didn't
incredible.
expect. It was something that I never expected. I didn't expect to feel so much welcome, so much belonging, um, especially within in the frame of 2 hours. Especially since 2 hours ago, I didn't know what I was getting into. I was shitting my pants, despite the trust and the faith that I had in my father-in-law and my friend. I was still shitting myself, and it absolutely buzzes me out how such a profound change could happen in the space of 2 hours. Like, I look back on it and I'm just like, fuck, man, like, it was such a totally unique experience for me, and I did not expect to feel the feelings that I felt in that moment. Like, it completely fucking blindsided me. And you kind of like,
Fraternal ritual for the win. I mean, that's
well,
the
yeah, like,
goal.
no shit. I kind of flinched a little bit as this feeling overwashed me, and I was just like, fuck, man, I was not expecting that. And after we went into the refectory, after everything was done, and I was presented my apron of an entered apprentice Freemason, yeah, I've just never felt that sense of belonging before, in respect to things outside of my own family and friends.
Yeah, there's
Especially
a,
men I've never met before. That was the thing that buzzed me out the most. I had met these men in my investigation, and maybe at the pub, and even that was a very, very brief talking. But I'd never ever expected that I would feel that from a bunch of strangers. you know they were now my brothers, and I knew that. And I could see it in the look in their eyes. I could tell by the tone in their voice. The way they conducted themselves, the way they embraced me. It was strangely weird. And a lot of people, as you would say, oh yeah, father, this dude's got father issues. No, I don't. I've got an absolutely awesome relationship with my father, my stepfather, and my father-in-law. I've had strong male figures in my life and equally strong female figures in my life. So yeah, it was just something that I didn't wholeheartedly expect, and that feeling has grown as I have progressed within my Masonic career. It really is weird
well,
now that I'm
there's an
talking to you about
interesting
it.
aspect because, as men in our society, universally in this world, there's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of, even if it's just, you could say, social pressure on the things you
Yep.
can't do and the things that you can't do, that you may want, that you may seek to try to create, and the personal limitations that you face in doing them alone.
Yep.
So what really stood out to me when I listened to your response was that it seems like in the mental state that you're in, when you started it, there was this place of like almost inevitably, right? When we first start, we're thinking about ourselves. When I
Yep.
started, I went in there looking for the secrets. I was looking for something. It had nothing to do with anybody else around me, not these different brethren, not these people from different walks of life. It's about me.
Yep.
After I went through that initiation in that space, the me did not exist. Now, it doesn't mean it doesn't speak up sometimes, but there was this sense where I felt like I was obligated to this greater whole, this collective
Yep.
force around me. That was an empowerment. That was something which before in my life, the only thing I had ever been obligated to in that kind of way was, which, like you said, my family or my friends, right? If I've married them, made them, or found them, so to speak, right? There's this aspect that you got to take care of them. You're obligated. You've
Yep.
made these relationships, and the charity, which is exemplified especially in our degrees, in our teachings, was one of those things which was so unfounded in any kind of religious system beforehand, that getting aligned with it in a way which, because I don't know, like, listen, I don't know about you, but last time I went to church, I've never been given shit. Right. Last time I stepped into a typical Judeo church, they're like, yo, put 10% of your money in the basket. Otherwise you can fucking leave. Yeah, there's just you don't get the help with your issues today. But when you come to the
Yep.
craft, and don't get me wrong, like, you pay for your friends. I love it. Best friends I could ever hope for.
Yep.
But there was this space of charity which exemplified something I'd never found before in my life. I'd never experienced that before, and it was charity that didn't come at my benefit. It was deemed to be the world's benefit. Collectively, we're working to improve the individual moral self, to be a better tool to work upon building the grandest structure. And that was something that just, it really hit home for me. But it's not something you see in our society outside of that.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. And I wholeheartedly agree with you. And I do share those sentiments as well. The reason why I got in the craft was for the philanthropy, for the charity, because in my life I had experienced huge amounts of benevolence, especially with regarding to my kids, and I'd always appreciated it. It always hit home for me. It always touched my heart, and I promised myself from that moment that I was going to be more involved with my community and give to charity. Be involved with charity. And that was my selfish goal going in. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, if I get to do some charity, I'll do some charity. I'll go to the lodge. If I get to fulfill this promise, sweet as. I don't give a fuck about anyone else. And then when I walked into that, as I left that initiation, that was something that clicked to me. It was like, damn, like, it isn't about me. This isn't about me. This is about us. My brothers will help me with what I want to get out of Freemasonry, and I will learn a shitload of stuff from there, and my perceptions will be challenged, and sweet as, and I can do the same for them, and it's all from a place of love and harmony and just total fucking respect. And that was something I didn't expect, really. Like, I you hear stories about the craft, brotherhood, fraternity, and it's like, yeah, sweet as, I got friends. I know what it's all about. I've got friends who I would consider brothers. I know what that's all about. But those are relationships that you build after a lifetime. Never before did
They
I
take
think
a
that I would.
fucking lifetime, man. You don't, but
Yeah,
shit, right? Like, oh, that's a really sexy way to put it, right? Because those are the, you get the things that you can sit in the shade of and go, oh yes, I'm in the shade, and forget that it
yep,
took years to get to this point, be it work friend, school friend, family friend, even if it's these trust and these relationships. But there are places where I can go to lodge and I trust the wife of my brother to watch my daughter. Like I can, there's this wholehearted genuinity expressed between brothers that I think is a testament. It's a testament to that experience, that initiation. Now, here's where it gets a little weird for me, right? Because Freemasonry is something that in many aspects people see as dying. It's selective. It's not universally available. It's certainly not as popular as the Christian, Catholic, or any of the other predominant monotheistic faiths out there. Not that I have a stick up my
yeah,
ass about that. But it's one of the only one of them that is pretty much at its heart non-separatist, right? It's not about separating or declaring anything other than that people can be good and improve, and that we're all here to help each other and to help each other do one thing. It doesn't define what that one thing is. It doesn't, it really aligns you as a man, as an individual human, with universal experience as a person, and
yep.
how to share that with other people who are also aware of the same unified space. So why do you think it is that the craft, I'm not going to say guards the secret, but why is it that we find this in Freemasonry but not in all of the other not in so many of the other avenues of grouping that our society and our world holds?
I think it's because we make a point to say that we make it a point that religion and your outlook in life, or whatever you may believe, is not a focus point. We're not going to focus on those differences. We're not going to focus on the things that divide us. It's not even a point that's brought up in lodge, and we're encouraged about that. To seek that harmony, to seek that unity, to respect. I think the biggest thing we have here, is which we operate on a boundary of respect. We don't have to agree with one another. Hell no. I've had, if I was to measure everyone by their belief, I'd fucking hate the majority of people in this world. If I'm going to be
Maybe
perfectly
that's my
honest, if I was,
problem.
and I think the way in which we operate, and how we are able to provide the things that we provide, and it seems to be a bit more difficult for other institutes, is because religion and one's belief and one's spirituality, it isn't a topic. We operate on that boundary of respect, and from there we acknowledge that those men have have made that choice of their own free will to worship who they want to worship, to believe in what they want to believe in. And I feel as if my comment is a little bit biased because I've operated that way my entire life, except for when that moment of time where I was atheist because I just couldn't fucking understand why people couldn't get along and why these religious differences were such a hot mixing pot of fucking bullshit. I just
Better
couldn't
to
understand it.
dissociate from all of them than to be unified with any one of them, right? Like if I separate myself in any way, I've heard him say that similar about the name of God or God in general, right? The minute you've said what God is the minute you've lost it.
Yeah. But that was this is what I sought out. And I think once I found out this piece of information, that was it. Like, so I found out through talking to my father-in-law, I said, I want to get a part of charity. I want to be part of something, the community, something greater than myself. I just want to do some fucking good in the world. And when I found out that we have men of all religion, and spiritualities, and it wasn't even a contentious point. Like I couldn't believe it at first. Like literally, I could not believe it. Which is funny because we operate like that in like places of employment and whatnot. Like it's not such a weird concept when I break it down because we do that in day-to-day life.
That's fair. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, despite the fact, I've lost my train of thought on that. But as I was saying, going back, I feel as if my opinion on that matter is a little bit biased because I've always operated on that. And when I found out that Freemasons had that outlook with regards to spirituality and religion, that was the fucking nail in the coffin for me. I signed my petition then and there because that was something that I was missing, and I didn't even know it. I didn't even know such a thing could exist. Keeping in mind that we do this every day, in other places, sports teams, places of employment, social gatherings. I don't know why the concept.
There's a level with those, right, where they don't feel as close to home. They're almost social. They exist out there. They're not. It's a social initiation. It's not being a part of something that has this connection to a reality of you, a real dimension of you. Okay, so there's kind of a question there. There's something we've talked about quite a bit recently. And this is where, when we talk about the non-sectarian views of the craft and how it doesn't require you to believe in any one thing, but it does require you to believe in one thing, in some all governing force, but it doesn't declare that and define that. Do you believe, or do you think that having a belief in a higher power is a universally shared quality of the human experience, or that it is something restricted to your state in that human experience?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, if we look back, very rarely has there been a point in time in which there hasn't been a society or community that has had that sort of universal belief, whether it be in one shape or another, whether it be in the form of a pantheon of gods or just a single god. It doesn't matter whether it be, representations of how nature works. Civilization sees a bloody volcano explode and then it's something completely something completely outside of their thought of understanding that they have to affiliate that work of nature with some sort of divine being. The fact in which we have people that haven't really worshipped or believe in some sort of overriding power is something that, to my knowledge, is something that's only kind of happened over the last 100 years or so, without society condemning you and calling you all sorts of colorful names and whatnot. So this is what I both love and hate about you. You get my mind working, and I leave with more questions than answers, but I absolutely love it. And this is one of those questions in which I find myself on a roundabout, chasing my own tail, trying to explain things.
I mean, you've hit a good point, right? And that's to say that, like, historically, if we review societies, especially at the point in time where society occurs, there's almost always this connection to some grand force, right? So now, even in sci-fi and different debated ancient theories, right? Whether it's aliens, or it's industry or evolution. There's this connection to power in some way.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the power of the collective, I think
Yep.
that's something that has a lot of relevance in today's society, is perceiving of this power.
Yep.
What do you think is the power of the craft, the power of working together? Because like there's a unique way that we approach it. Like right now we're connected. We get on Facebook. We've got thousands of friends. We're all, we're connected virtually.
Yeah.
We're all a part of it. But why is it that the relationships that we make within the craft have such a different depth to them?
I think that's because we have all experienced the same thing with, our degree work, with the ritual and ceremony regarding that degree work. And also we have agreed to the same obligation, the same moral obligation. And I find it, or at least to my experience, that's what I find binds us, at least with any of the interactions that I've had with brothers of the craft. We all operate on that line of having that similar experience, which obviously may have its slight nuances depending on which jurisdiction you fall under, but fundamentally it is the same experience. We have taken that same obligation. We understand collectively what it is we are striving for as brothers in the craft. We understand the rules in which we are playing. There is that.
Okay, so with that, let me kind of challenge it a little bit, and which would go to say that, are we not all human? Do we not all understand the value of survival, of shelter, of engagement, right? In a certain sense, that we all on an unconscious level get that we're gonna die. We have these understandings, but why doesn't that unify us in the same way?
That is something that I've been asking myself for years. Like, we have more in as humans, as people, than what divides us. And honestly, that's been a question that's plagued my mind. Like, why are we focusing on just this little ball of differences that is fucking locked away in the back cupboard, when there is like this whole room of commonality that we have to get through in order to reach that small little dark room in the back? In all honesty, I think it's just because people don't care, which is a shitty thing to say. Like, you care about you and yours. And again, that's not applied to everyone, but from my experiences, that is the majority of people's views. I'll care about me and mine, and you do you and yours. And I think through Freemasonry, once we are initiated into the craft, the brothers of the craft, they are your family. They are essentially your brothers. They are now mine, and I am theirs. Like, in that sense, we have something that binds us, again, which is funny enough, because as you said before, as humans, we have much more that binds us than what Freemasonry does. Yet somehow we don't get along. And to be honest, I wouldn't be able to provide you with a very clear answer, because that is something that I'm still figuring out myself. And it's something that I've been asking myself for years and years. And I guess that's why I have wholeheartedly been attracted to Freemasonry, because it offers what I've been seeking out. It provides those answers as to, why can't we get along? Why are we so similar yet so fucking different?
It's funny that way, because the way that I think Freemasonry gives it a unique approach, at least this is the way that I've kind of started to understand, especially after I consider a lot of the teachings of the second degree and the first degree, those things which are not so specifically allegorical, and they are more very literal. They're very like, just don't be a fucking idiot. It's remarkable. It's amazing how effective that is. But at the same point, when you look at it, right, they're tools. All of them are tools to give you a better picture of this thing that you could never fit in one picture, right? You've got something you've got to try to fit in the whole frame, but it's almost impossible to. So we're going to teach you Braille so you can understand what these bumps mean. We're going to teach you, we're going to give you these things which will let you see the whole. And I think
Yeah.
that's something, because you're right, as people, we do have more experiences as a whole, even like sorrow and suffering. And I think that's why, like, TikTok and social media has really just risen, because the one thing that's come out of it for the human consciousness is, oh, we're not all that different. And in fact, all of us are
No.
looking for the same thing. We're looking for these things, so I find it interesting in many spaces that the craft, and with many religions, with many orders, with many different teachings, right? This isn't restricted just to the craft of Freemasonry, though it's definitely there.
Yeah.
That is that part whereby you get glimpses. Like the minute I put a box in anything, well, that's going to give you the ability to separate what is in the box from what is outside the box. Not that they are separate,
Yeah.
but this is what they do. In the Christian mythology or mythos, it's interesting because the first the first name ever given to, or not, let me get right, the first challenge, right, job given to Adam or creation was to name everything. By naming
Mhm.
something on a certain level, you've separated it. You're giving it this form, going, you are this, you are
Yeah.
this, you are this. And so it's, as builders, the only way you can build appropriately is by having different names for different things. And so it's like in many spaces you see different, all kinds of paths and systems for organizing this human experience, but the craft does so in such a way that is very harmonious to working together. We all get building, we all get society on a certain space, but to figure out how to implement that practically, that becomes the question.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. I think another thing that sort of, why as Freemasonry, why we operate on that level of commonality as a part, as opposed to society. I think it's because we are sort of forced outside of our comfort zone, to interact with men that we would never have interacted with socially, because they are outside our social circles. They believe in things completely different than we are. They come from a walk of life that is completely unlike my own. Whereas in human society, I can pick who I want to interact with. Whereas in a lodge, whoever turns up is
You get what you
who
get.
I interact with. Yeah, you get what you get, man. Like, it's like tough shit, just suck it up, buttercup, and talk to your brother. I think that's where the differences are, is that as brothers of the craft, because we're not united by creed or doctrine or belief, which is apart from church, because that's their commonality, that's their binding glue. Whereas in Freemasonry, it's the idea, and you can't choose who comes to lodge. You can't choose who you sit next to within the body of a lodge, respectively, of course. And when you're there, you are challenged. You are constantly challenged. And the only way to challenge yourself is to make those interactions with these individuals who you would never have spoken to if you walked on, if you crossed each other in a street. That's the difference, I feel, anyway. And then obviously with that tolerance comes understanding. Then with understanding comes love. And I think within the body of a lodge, and the way in which we dictate ourselves while within those four walls is rather unique. Yeah.
Honestly, I really get it. And I mean, especially with the general vibes that you put down within the space, because again, it's about having a system of communication. Language is so important because it's what allows us to
Yeah.
communicate. Communication is the expression that we have to try to capture and share. It's this exchange, it's input and output. And when we look at the craft, when we look at all of these different systems, it's about creating this cohesive sense of communication between all of the different parts, right? You look at a building and you're like, it's the composition of a lot, not just any one kind of material, not just any one singular thought, but a lot of thought. All existence mirrors that same space, and understanding how to see the relationship that you have as an individual to the individual next to you. Well, shit, that is an underlying and unifying principle taught in almost every faith ever recorded since the beginning of time, eternal. I mean, Christianity says, love your neighbor like your brother, or love them like yourself, however you want to look at that. It's done something, it's giving you some instruction as to how to unify you with the whole. In
Yeah.
Freemasonry, it's this: we're all on the level, we're all working towards the same purpose. We're, even if it's a simple purpose, but this collective good to be better, however we seem, that's deemed to be declared.